Hello, this is Ben Pye with Holosoft, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about Boolean modifiers in Blender. They're very useful tools that are pretty simple to use, and yet you can get some very sophisticated results. Boolean is algebraically basically a true or false statement. Something is or is not. So when we apply that to three-dimensional thinking, to three-dimensional geometries, we can deal with where objects do or do not interact with one another and set up things that occur as a result of this. So in this particular case, I've moved this cube to overlap with this sphere. If I look over on the side, in my outlier, you'll see that the cube I've selected is cube 1, and the sphere in question is sphere 1. So, using a Boolean, here we go. In this case, I'm going to select the cube specifically. I want to apply the action to the cube. And if we move over to the side and look at our properties window, the wrench is where we deal with our modifiers. If I select on the wrench button, I have the option to add a modifier. When I click on this, I get a list of a lot of options. Specifically under Generate, you do have the ability to add Booleans. When you do this, you get a few different options, and I do encourage you to experiment with these. You can get some very interesting things to happen just as you play with this. In this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change intersect to difference. So I'm going to be dealing with the difference between these two objects. Now, next thing I need to do is I've got the cube selected, but I need to specify that we are dealing with this particular sphere. So I'm going to select the object in question that's interacting with it, and you will see that I have an option between the cube, the other cube that's not in use, the other sphere, or the one that I just mentioned in the outlier, sphere 0, 1. So I'll specify that that's the one I want to use. And again, I have some options here. In this particular case, I'm going to go with Carve. So what's going to happen is we are going to carve into this cube using this sphere. Now, for that to happen, I have to actually select the Apply button. Once I've done that, you'll see this is gone, and something presumably has happened. So to confirm that that's the case, I'm going to click on the sphere and move it out of the way, and you will see that I have carved out a divot, if you will, out of this cube. So the second example I'm going to use in this case is a little bit different, but again, it's simply using the modifier. So I'm going to move the cube so that it overlaps with the sphere. And in this case, when I go to my properties and add a modifier and select my Boolean, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to select union. This is one that I think is a pretty cool thing too. So after selecting union, I'm going to go through the same basic process. I'm going to specify that in this case I'm working with cube and sphere 0. So I'm going to specify that the interaction is going to be with sphere 0, my original sphere that I put into this project. And I don't need to change that this is dealing with the mesh. I'm going to go ahead and select Apply. And now if I move this out of the way, you will see that it's generated a new composite object. So hopefully you can see that just with these couple of things, I can now create some fairly complex objects in a few simple motions. So that's basically the idea behind using Booleans in Blender. I encourage you to experiment with this and see what you can put together.